Welcome back to Old Charles, coin lovers and collectors. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating history, design, and collector value of the United States $1 from 1965. This small coin might not look like much in your pocket change, but it actually has a story full of change, controversy, and collectible interest. So stay tuned until the end, because you might be surprised how much your 1965 dime could be worth today. To understand the value of the 1965 dime, we first need to take a trip back in time. Before 1965, U.S. dimes, like quarters and half dollars, were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. These silver coins had been standard for generations. However, by the early 1960s, silver prices began to rise, and people started hoarding coins for their silver content. This created a nationwide coin shortage. In response, the U.S. Mint made a historic decision. Starting in 1965, the dime was no longer made of silver. Instead, it was struck in a new clad composition, a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper-nickel alloy. This made the dime much cheaper to produce and resistant to wear. The 1965 dime became the first U.S. dime of the modern clad era, marking the end of silver coinage for everyday circulation. This was a huge turning point in American numismatic history. Another interesting fact: in 1965, to discourage coin hoarding, the mint decided not to put mint marks on coins from 1965 to 1967. That means no matter where your dime was minted, Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, it will simply have no mint mark at all. Now, let's talk about the design. The dime still carried the famous Roosevelt portrait, which had been introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. It's a left-facing portrait of Roosevelt with the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." Below the neck is the date, 1965. The design features a torch in the center, symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch for peace and an oak branch for strength. Around the edge are the words United States of America, E pluribus unum, and one dime. This classic design by John R. Cynic is still used on dimes today, making the 1965 dime a bridge between the silver past and the modern clad coinage ERA.SO. How much is a 1965 dime worth? The answer depends on condition, rarity, and whether it's a special variety. Let's break it down in average circulated condition. A 1965 dime is generally worth 10 to 20 cents, just a little above face value, because it has no silver content. In uncirculated condition, mint state 60 to 65, values can range from $1 to $5, depending on luster and strike quality. Gem quality examples in MS66 or MS67 can bring in $20 to $100 plus, especially if graded by PCGS or NGC. Here's where it gets really exciting. Some 1965 dimes were mistakenly struck on silver planchets left over from 1964. These are extremely rare and highly collectible. If you find one of these, it could be worth thousands of dollars, sometimes even $7,000 to $15,000, depending on condition. Other mint errors like off-center strikes, double dies, or missing clad layers can also command premiums ranging from $50 to several $100. If you think you have a rare silver 1965 dime, get it certified by a grading service like PCGS or NGC. This is the only way to know for sure. So there you have it, the 1965 Roosevelt dime, a coin that marked a major change in U.S. coinage history. While most are worth just a little over face value, rare silver planchet errors or high-grade gems can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars. If you've got a jar of change at home, it might be worth checking for a 1965 dime. Who knows, you could be sitting on a treasure. To truly understand the importance of the 1965 U.S. dime, we have to go back to the early 1960s and explore the events that led to its creation. For more than 170, the dime were made from precious metals, gold, silver, and copper. The dime itself, introduced in 1796, had always been struck in silver. This tradition continued through many designs, from the draped bust and seated liberty to the barber and Mercury dimes. In 1946, the Roosevelt dime was introduced, honoring President Franklin Delano Roosevelt after his passing. This coin was struck in 90% silver, 10% copper, and it carried on America's long silver coinage tradition, but by the early 1960s, the global economy was shifting. Silver was becoming more expensive. The price of silver bullion began to rise closer to the face value of the coins themselves. As silver became scarce, a strange phenomenon took place. People started to hoard coins. Instead of spending their dimes, quarters, and half dollars, many Americans were putting them aside, melting them for silver, or saving them as investments. This created a nationwide coin shortage. Vending machines, laundromats, and even parking meters were being affected. By 1964, the shortage had become a serious national issue. The U.S. Mint was producing coins at record levels, but they were disappearing from circulation as fast as they were struck. President Lyndon B. Johnson and Congress had to act. The solution was controversial but necessary. The U.S. would remove silver from its smaller denominations. In 1965, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which authorized a complete redesign of coin compositio. The dime, quarter, and eventually the half-dollar were changed from 90% silver to a clad composition, a copper core bonded with copper-nickel layers. The only coin to keep silver for a while was the Kennedy half-dollar, which was reduced to 40% silver instead of 90%. The Roosevelt Dime of 1965 was, therefore, the first dime of the modern clad era. For the first time in U.S. history, the dime contained no silver at all. To make matters even more interesting, between 1965 and 1967, the Mint decided to remove mint marks entirely. The reason was simple: collectors and speculators were hoarding coins from specific mints. By removing mint marks, the government hoped to discourage people from stashing coins away, ensuring that more coins would stay in circulation. This was a bold experiment. Coins struck at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all looked identical. None of them carried a P, D, or S. Only after 1968 were mint marks restored to U.S. coinage. The 1965 dime thus represents a major turning point in American coinage history. It ended nearly 2 centuries of silver dime production. It introduced a new clad composition that is still used today. It reflects a period of economic challenge, innovation, and adaptation in U.S. history. Another fascinating detail is that despite the new law, some leftover silver planchets from 1964 were accidentally fed into the presses in 1965. This mistake gave birth to one of the rarest and most sought-after error coins of modern times, the 1965 silver dime. These coins slipped into circulation and are now worth thousands of dollars because they shouldn't exist at all. The 1965 dime isn't just a piece of pocket change. It's a coin that tells the story of America's transition from precious metal to modern coinage. It reflects the pressures of global economics, the actions of Congress and the president, and the daily struggles of ordinary Americans during a time when even something as small as a dime could spark nationwide debate. When it comes to coin collecting, one of the most important factors that determines the value of a coin is its condition. Collectors and grading companies use a scale known as the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1 to 70 to evaluate coins. The higher the number, the better the condition. Let's go step by step through the conditions you might find the dime contained. A 1965 dime in, and how those conditions affect value. These are the lowest conditions possible. A dime in this grade is almost completely worn down. The date may be barely readable, the portrait of Roosevelt looks flat, and the reverse design is extremely faint. Value. Just face value, 10 cents. Heavy wear across the coin, but the major details are still visible. You can see Roosevelt's outline, though the finer hair details are gone. On the reverse, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch are visible but flat. Value. Still face value. Maybe a slight premium for collectors who want a filler coin. Only light wear on the high points of the design. Roosevelt's hair shows nice definition, the ear is visible, and the reverse torch and branches are strong. Value. 50 cents to $1. Very minimal wear. Usually only visible under magnification or on the highest points of the design, like Roosevelt's cheekbone or hairline. Much of the original mint luster remains. Value. $1 to $2. Now we enter the world of uncirculated coins, where the 1965 dime can start to become more valuable. These coins show no wear from circulation, though they may have minor bag marks or surface scratches from the minting and storage process. nearly perfect to absolutely perfect. These are extremely rare for clad coins from the mid-1960s, since quality control was not as high then. At MS 68, the coin looks stunning under magnification, and MS 70 is essentially flawless. Value: hundreds or even thousands of dollars if certified by PCGS or NGC. If the coin was struck accidentally on a leftover 90% silver planchet, its condition dramatically increases its value. Even in worn condition, such an error dime is worth thousands of dollars. In mint state, it can reach $7,000 to $15,000 or more. Condition also matters here. A high-grade error coin can be worth many multiples of a circulated one. Some errors in mint state have sold for over $1,000. For collectors, condition isn't just about looks, it's about rarity within rarity. Millions of 1965 dimes were produced, but only a small percentage survive in pristine gem condition. Most were used daily, tossed into pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. Finding one in top grade today is much harder than it might seem. That's why grading services like PCGS and NGC are so important. They certify the condition, giving buyers confidence. For a common 1965 dime in poor condition, it's only worth face value. But the same coin in certified MS 67 condition could sell for over $200. That's the power of condition in coin collecting. Every nick, scratch, and bit of wear tells the story of where that dime has been over the decades. For everyday collectors, even a circulated 1965 dime is a piece of history. But for serious numismatists, the challenge lies in finding those rare, high-grade survivors that shine as if they just left the mint.